So what makes it complicated is not so much the words of the laws that we have prohibiting discrimination based on, I'll focus mostly on race and sex for this conversation, given a lot of what EDGE does, although we'll reference some others, but how those words have been interpreted by the courts, including most recently. So in 1964, this law is passed. It says very simply, employers cannot discriminate on the basis of race or sex. From the very beginning, the courts were clear that meant, for example, you couldn't discriminate against a white person as well as a black person. You can't say, no, we're not hiring any white people. You can't discriminate against men as well as women. But early on, the courts did give flexibility to employers to take race or sex into account in certain circumstances, basically when they were trying to remedy societal discrimination, and they could show they had a disparity in their workforce. They didn't have the same percentage of Black employees or women that you would expect based on the number of qualified Black people or women. So that sort of was the case for some time. Now, in the educational setting, there were many more decisions at the Supreme Court, decisions that allowed race to be taken into account pretty explicitly in the application process. Again, because it was remedying lack of diversity at the educational institution. So we still don't have a Supreme Court opinion in employment, but sure many people know the Harvard case that the Supreme Court decided. The Supreme Court said very clearly, we never take race into account in the application process. And increasing diversity in your educational setting is not a significant enough interest. Now, even though that's just the educational setting, the logic, we can expect lower courts to be applying that in the employment setting. And in particular, it's invigorated almost an industry of filing charges with the EEOC. Right. For those who don't know, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is the federal agency charged with enforcing the laws, filing charges with the EEOC, and filing cases. An invigorated industry out there. Well, the goal of the organizations bringing these challenges is to scare employers from doing anything. That's their goal. And what they are charging, their focus is DEI efforts, including particularly focus on challenging diversity numerical targets, fellowships, other programs restricted to people of color or women, and certain types of DEI trainings. So that's their main focus at the moment. And the goal is to scare employers.
Right.
Well, again, as someone who's worked in this for years and years, I mean, my first message is don't cave in. Don't cave in. Do the things you legally can still do, right? Remain responsive to societal change, to stakeholders. Remain true to yourselves. But second, be smart, strategic, and thoughtful. Don't do things that we now know could get you into trouble under US law, as such laws are currently being interpreted, but develop a coherent strategy and targeted operational activities that lets you move forward, but with reduced legal risk. And I say reduced legal risk because the charges will come regardless, right? But you can set it up so you are much better situated in terms of dealing with them. That's what I say the response should be.
Yeah.
One last thing before we get to your other questions, because it's all about, for example, general counsel saying we need to minimize risk. Yes, you need to minimize risk, but you need to think about risk broadly. Yeah, there's a risk that you're going to spend money, defending something. But if you do nothing, the risk is there's going to be a range of consumers that won't be happy. You will not attract the same number of employees who are women or Black people, and that's going to affect who else you can bring in. So which will then affect your bottom line as a business.
Right.
So when you think about risk, think about it broadly. Just don't underestimate the commitment of people in this country to DEI.
Yeah.
Just don't, there's a mismatch between sometimes societal feeling and law.
Yes.
They want you to stay true. Okay.